In this video, I will be demonstrating how to build a superhero picker or fetch a set of superheroes and villains from an API using React, subsequently display information that the API is providing, and subsequently work with the information that the API is providing to render it on screen. We shall be doing this in React, and so in front of us we see an AWS environment set up for React. I'm going to start off with first creating a React application from the Create React App template. To do that, I shall type out the following. npx create-react-app superhero picker. Once Create React App has completed its process, we can cd into the directory and type in npm start. Once you type in npm start, we see the development server starting up, and we can run the React application superhero picker. One can preview the superhero picker application by clicking on the preview the running application, and we see that this is what it looks like. We can pop this out, and so we see what the application looks like in its own browser. We can also open up the console so that if we want to debug, we can see some of the information we might want to render out. Going back to the code, we can now start working on app.js, which is present in the source directory. Opening app.js, this is what we find. The first thing that we are going to do is we're going to import React as follows. Once we've imported React, we can now use some of the features of React. We don't really need the logo, and so we can delete that. And additionally, if we want to delete some of the aspects of here, we can do that as well. For instance, I'm not interested in this header. I really need none of this. Once we save this, we see that we literally have nothing on this page. So to start off with, let us think about what we want to accomplish in this application. In this application, I want to connect to an API, and I wish to fetch data from this API. The API that I want to connect to is superhero-search. It's available at Rapid API, and it has two endpoints, heroes and villains. The villains endpoint gives us a list of 20 villains, and the heroes endpoint gives us a randomized list of 20 heroes. I would like to then save the data that is coming from these endpoints into arrays, specifically a heroes array and maybe a villains array. So let's start off first by initializing these arrays. So within the app function, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize the heroes and villains array. So I'm going to specify a const heroes array, And this heroes array is modifiable using set heroes. And this is a state that I've got to establish using use state, and I'm going to specify the initial state of the heroes array to be an empty array. The next thing I'm going to do is the same thing, but instead of for heroes, this is going to be for villains. And so instead of set heroes, it's going to be set villains. Again, set to be an empty array. To fetch data and store it in this array, I need to use the effect. I need to use the use effect hook. Specifically, the way I want to fetch the data is as follows. I want to specify react.use effect. Within this use effect hook, there is going to be a function, specifically an arrow function. Inside this function, I'm going to use fetch as a way to obtain data from the API. The API endpoint that I wish to connect to is going to be http:// or HTTPS specifically hero-search.p.rapidapi.com/API/villains. I'm going to be connecting to the villains endpoint first. What I then need to specify within the fetch parameter is some parameters for this endpoint. I've got to specify the method and some headers. I'm just going to copy and paste these methods and headers in here. We can see the method is get, and we have an API key and a host. Once the data is fetched, one realizes that this is actually an asynchronous fetch. We are using the concept of promises here, such that once a request is set, we are waiting for a result back. We might either get the result back, and if we don't get the result back, we have to in some way handle what we do when we don't get the result back. If we do get the result back, the result is going to be in JSON form, and so I'm going to say, what should this hook do once I get a response back? And so I'm going to say, then take the response that we get back from this API, and what I'm going to do is take this response or return the JSON representation of that response. Once I do this, I have something else that I want to do. I have some data that has been converted into JSON. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that data and I'm going to set it up so that I'm going to set it up such that the villains array is populated with that data. And so I shall say set villains data. Again, I'm using the set villains function as a way to change the villains array, or just change the state of the villains array. However, if this process does not successfully execute, I need to catch the error. Once I catch the error, what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log this error by saying you have an error in your fetch, just prompting me where my error might be. Now, if this does not successfully complete, we need to indicate what we want to do with the array. And so I'm going to say, leave the array blank if this does not successfully complete. As you can see, we have an error over here, line 22, 21. And so line 22, it says that set villains is not defined. And the reason is I have a spelling mistake in my villains over here. I should throw an I up there. And once I do, this error disappears. And so at the end of this hook, I should actually have some data in my villains array. To ensure that I actually have that information in here, I'm just going to, after I set villains, console log the villains array, just so that I know that the data is in there. Let's make sure this is working. I can go to the React application, and let's take a refresh. Aha, it says I have an error in my fetch. This API endpoint is not found. And so let's see what error I might have in my fetch. It says https:// superhero-search.p.rapid api.com/API. That's my mistake. It's AINS. I should probably change the way I spell this as well. It's AINS, that's my mistake. And so I'm just going to go ahead and change this AINS. AINS and AINS, just to make sure I'm consistent. And let's go back over here. And we see line 23, we have something over here. We have an array of length 0. Let's refresh this, make sure that that's correct. Array of length 0. Let's see what the problem is. Problem it has. Console log villains. It seems that our data is not being set to villains, and so I'm just gonna console log data and ensure that data is coming down as it is, as it should be. Clear this out. Reload this. And we see that data is coming down on line 22. I have 20 elements. But the array is of length 0. So just to see what was going on over here, I looked at the length of villains, and I can in fact see that the length of villains is actually 20. Right, so there is something in the array, but for some reason, console log of that is not actually, there it is. It displays it to me. For some reason, it wasn't showing up up front, but now it does. Okay, so this is line 24. Line 24 indicates is console log villains, and I do have some data in there. One can actually replicate this entire process for the heroes endpoint as well. And so I'm just going to copy and paste the very same function, but in this case, I'm going to change the endpoint to heroes. And so I'm not going to console log data, but I am going to console log villains, and I'm going to console log heroes. So lines 24 and lines 44 should have 20 elements each. Refreshing this, and so line 24 gives me this, and so that's console log villains, and line 47 says I have an error in my fetch in line 47. Let's see what the error is. For some reason, my endpoint might be incorrect. Again, let me make sure. HEROES. That's a problem with my fetch. Fix that. And now again, line 44 showing me an array of 0, but it does have 20 elements in it. It's for the moment it's going to show me an array of 0 length, but it's basically what's happening over here is that the reason it's showing me 0 is it's still fetching the data, and once the data is in the array and this web page refreshes, we shall see that those arrays actually have data in them. So the initial promise starts off with having nothing in it, but then these arrays are going to populate based on the data that comes out from these endpoints.